What's up, world? What's up, world? It's your host, They Roll the Most, Stevo Stoner, aka Stoner Trap CEO. So we gonna get right into some FBA business. We tapping in with the fact that it seems as though the original Jim Crow movement has been a lived experience has been co-opted by the fight for immigration, and they renamed it something like Juan Crow. So we're gonna dive into the story and see exactly what's going on.
Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not.
Make sure y'all get over to the website stonertrap.com. Check out the music, merch, live streams, and live performances.
Now, I know that you have heard of Jim Crow. Jim Crow was a time in the United States of America after slavery when our family members were basically re-enslaved after the Compromise of 1877. And the Jim Crow period was a period when laws were made to restrict the movement of Black Americans and also to get as much free labor out of them as they could. And if you weren't willing to work for free, somehow you're going to end up in jail or in some kind of trouble. It was the after slavery laws, the after slavery brutality, the after slavery oppression that our family members experienced. Nobody went through slavery and Jim Crow in the United States but Black American descendants of slavery.
And this is a fact. I don't know why people be trying to twist the history or sweep it under the rug as if there were other minority groups that had to come in and deal with what we dealt with, because the whole thing is a lot of these minority groups didn't get here until the early 1900s. You get what I'm saying? Or late 1800s. So a lot of that time during slavery and when this country was being built, keep in mind that's 1776 that the country was built. That's about 100-year plus gap. Then the 200-year gap before anybody else shows up to the struggle. You dig? So it's like, I'm glad to do this breakdown. Let's go.
And we have a long history of a lot of things, a lot of abuse, a lot of violence that took place during that time. But we call that Jim Crow, and it lasted from about 1877 until 1964 when the Civil Rights Bill was passed. Now that is documented American history. Nobody went through that but Black Americans. Okay? So, imagine my surprise when I heard Tariq Nasheed having a fit a few minutes ago on Twitter over something that the Latinos have made up called Juan Crow. We have Jim Crow. Now they are talking about Juan Crow. So I'm going to let you hear Tariq Nasheed's meltdown.
Family, there was nothing called no Juan Crow back in those days.
Come on.
Juan Crow is something that they made up in 2008. It was some journalist made up Juan Crow to try to make a comparative struggle. Wasn't no damn Juan Crow. And they're recognized as white. They just weren't white enough.
Facts.
It's that they're trying to make it seem like it was an equal struggle. You're not going to do that because some of the Latino organizations during real Jim Crow, they told us to kick rocks.
Facts. Do your homework on LULAC. LULAC is a big organization, a Latino organization. It's almost like the NAACP, like a Latino mirror version of that. The president at that time during the civil rights struggle said the Negro struggle is not the Latino struggle. He said this. This was documented.
Y'all not gonna sit up here and talk about some damn Juan Crow. Y'all told us, y'all tooted y'all ass up at us and told us where to kiss it. Mm-hmm. Ain't no damn Juan Crow. Y'all was sitting up here fighting to be classified as white. LULAC brags about being able to classify everybody who is Latino as white.
What did I just say about LULAC?
Yeah, the League of United Latin American Citizens. There you go. The League of United Latin American Citizens. It's a big organization.
That's what it stands for.
During real Jim Crow, they publicly came out against us, family. They were like, yeah, that stuff those Negroes are going through, their struggle ain't our struggle.
Facts. I just said that.
Let them do them. You ain't about to sit here and try to make it a comparative damn struggle like we were struggling together. Don't let them do that.
What if you can create your...
And that's crazy because I just mentioned that. I literally just mentioned LULAC. But I did not know it went as far back as Jim Crow, because Jim Crow was right after slavery and Reconstruction. So that's that period right between you get to the civil rights, like the 20s, 30s, 40s, the 10s, 1910. So it's like, man, bro.
Who really gets it. He's one of the few that gets it. You have to stand up to this kind of stuff. People are trying to steal your story, trying to steal our story, our narrative, our struggle. It wasn't the same struggle. He is right. These people still think they're white. I had people coming on my channel a few days ago when I asked what contributions had Puerto Ricans made, and somebody came on here talking about we're white, we're from Europe, we're this. No, you're not. They were trying to be passing, but white people said enough already. You're not white. So that's how come they stay in these areas where they can pass for white. And the problem also with black Americans is black Americans are so fascinated, and I'm talking about black American men now. They just love those Latino women so much till we are going, the ones of us who care about our history and care about our culture are going to have to do double duty, because there are black people who are so fascinated with non-black people that they will give away everything in the bank, so to speak.
And I believe that that's a bit of self-hatred, if you ask me. But at the same time, it's a glamorization of media, you know, at the same time, because we constantly being spoon-fed images of that, especially in the modern day with all the interracial dating and everything. You can't even turn on a soap commercial and not see a black man holding a non-black woman's hand. And, you know, it's a lot of programming. So, but at the same time, you do give people that green light of socially. People be like, you gotta love who you love. So it's one of those things. I don't really pick at brothers about that, but at the same token, be conscious of what you are doing, because this woman has a point. If you want to see the beauty of your family grow the same way that you grew to be a black man, because, you know, 9 times out of 10, your parents might have been black. So you keep that family tree strong. You keep it going. You dig? And black is beautiful. You love yourself. If you love yourself, that's going to reflect in the relationships you have. That's going to reflect in the children that you birth. You dig? So it's quite a topic.
Then we won't have anything left, and they'll be saying, oh, no, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. We all the same. We all the same. We're not all the same. We are not all the same. We have not had the same struggle. We have not made the same contributions to this country.
True.
There is no such thing as no Juan Crow. And I understand his frustration. More than one or two people in the Black American community needs to get upset about people trying to steal your culture, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to steal your history and steal your culture and make it seem like they're entitled to what you're entitled to. That they're entitled to what we're entitled to. That they made the same contribution. The Puerto Ricans are coming on here. We made so much contribution to this country. And I'm like, what? What? We have to get proud about who we are. And the ones who want out need to get out and stay out. And then they need to become the people that are the outliers and not the main body of Black Americans. They are the outliers. And some people could call them traitors. But they are not the main body of our group, because they'll tear everything down that's ever been worked for, trying to assimilate into a group of people who will never accept them. And I wouldn't even want to be accepted by them, because they haven't done anything. The only thing, a lot of even the white people, the only thing that some of them have contributed to America is their white skin. They haven't sacrificed anything. We have the story that everybody wants, because we are truly authentic Americans.
Come on.
When you read the history of anybody, any real solid civilization, there was a struggle that went on. There was a fight. There was sacrifice. There was bloodshed. And then the victor eventually emerges. Sometimes it takes a long time to know who is going to be the victor.
That's us. That's me. Hi. Black American, right? That's me.
But you have to stay in the fight. You can't give in because you don't like the way you look. And then somebody else going to come in calling himself Juan Crow. Really? So really what they're doing now is they're trying to create a narrative that says that they went through the same struggle as Black Americans. They're the same as Black Americans. They made the same contributions as Black Americans. But when you tie them down and say, okay, name it. Name what you did. What did you do? Let me know. What did you do? They'll come up with some little flimsy stuff that won't hold water. So anyway, this is what Tariq Nasheed was upset about. And I understand that frustration. And we should all be upset about it. And we should all be willing to do our part to make sure that other people don't encroach on our story, our narrative, and our struggle. Because they weren't there. Nobody helped us. No, the only help Black people have ever gotten in this country has been from a few white people. A few well-meaning white people who are just going to stand for what is right. And it's not a lot of them, but it's enough to get things done.
I don't really agree with the end of that, but hey, everybody's entitled to what they're entitled to. Let's get specific about exactly what Jim Crow was and how it got to be, right?
Racial caste system.
So let's get there. One Mic History. Shout out to One Mic History.
Jim Crow was the name of a racial caste system which consisted primarily in the South between 1877 and the mid-1960s. And if this is the type of content that you enjoy, you can find more content like this, OneMicHistory.com. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so at my Patreon page or my Buy Me Coffee in the description below. Also, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's get started. The term Jim Crow derives from early 19th century minstrel shows. It was a popular form of entertainment which is the predecessor to vaudeville. The shows consisted of a primarily white song and dance performer crudely mimicking African Americans for the enjoyment of white audiences. One of the earliest and most famous was Thomas Daddy Rice, who devised a strutting, dancing character supposedly mimicking a prancing crow, and the character became known as Jim Crow. How the character named Jim Crow became a general term for America's racial segregation and discrimination is not known, but at some point during the 19th century, the term ceased to have anything to do with minstrel shows because their popularity had started to wane and instead signified the practice of disenfranchising, physically discriminating against African Americans. From the very beginning, Jim Crow was a way of life. Under Jim Crow, African Americans were relegated to the status of second-class citizens. Jim Crow was underpinned by the belief or the rationalization that whites were superior to blacks in intelligence, morality, and civilized behavior. Many Christian ministers taught whites that they were the chosen people and blacks were cursed to be servants. God supported racial segregation. Additionally, at almost every education level, they taught the belief that blacks were innately, intelligently, culturally inferior to whites. Pro-segregation politicians gave speeches about the dangers of integration and the mixing of races. Newspapers and magazines routinely referred to blacks as niggas and coons, and their articles reinforced anti-black stereotypes.
That's crazy. Just think about that. And these people try to tell you that God ordained for you to be in servitude just because of your skin color. And then it started with the religion of them saying that and co-opting Christianity because they stole everything about Christianity and remixed it. And then put it in your minds that God put you in this position. And then after that, they came with law to back that up. So it's really, oh my God.
Any activity that suggested social equality encouraged interracial unions, and interracial unions could produce a mixed race that would destroy America. Therefore, violence must be used to keep blacks in their place.
Blacks. Notice that they're saying blacks. They didn't say anything about a Hispanic at all. This is the topic we on. We talking about Juan Crow. They didn't say anything about Juan at all in this conversation. They talking about Jim.
In fact, during the 30s, when the Nazis had set out to disenfranchise and discriminate against their Jewish citizens, they closely studied the laws of Jim Crow in the United States. They admired the Jim Crow era laws and debated whether they should introduce a similar system of segregation in Germany. Additionally, when the idea of banning Jewish and Aryan marriages were presented to the Nazis, they once again looked to America to adopt an idea similar to the one-drop rule that stipulated that anyone with one drop of black ancestry was legally black and could not marry a white person.
Bro, I damn near want to break these headphones. It ain't like we want to run around. Well, nowadays these brothers do want to run around and marry snow bunnies. But this is, if you look back at the history, why would you want to? To be real. And then think about that. Hitler is probably one of the biggest terrorist evil villains known to man, and this motherfucker looked at America and said, y'all subjugate them niggas so good, we want to try that over here in Germany. Y'all subjugate black folks so good, we want to try that over here in Germany.
Jim Crow took place in two distinct forms: Jim Crow etiquette and Jim Crow laws, i.e. black codes. Jim Crow etiquette governed how African Americans...
Black codes. I'm sorry I keep pausing this, brother, but black codes. He ain't say nothing about a brown code, a Hispanic code. This was a full-on war from the U.S. government and white folks to black people. Point blank, period. It can't get no clearer than this. And the world knows. So how can you co-opt that and act as though your group had anything to do with the struggle of my lineage? Shame on you.
To behave in white society, and sometimes the etiquette would vary from person to person. For instance, black males could not offer their hand to shake to a white male or any other part of their body to a white female. Black males couldn't even light the cigarette of a white female. Blacks and whites were not supposed to eat together, but if they did eat together, whites would be served first. A black couple was not allowed to show affection towards one another in public.
Wow. I never knew about that. Oh my goodness. Black king, if you got a black queen, you need to hold her tight in public and let the world know you love her publicly. Black queen, if you got a black king, you need to hold him tight. That's why man, what? This is crazy. I knew about black codes, obviously. you know, but people kind of like shorten that to you can't eat at the same restaurants, drink at the same water fountain, use the same bathroom. We never really, they don't deep dive and give you a list of all the black codes in school when they teach you about black history and Jim Crow. That's not what they do.
Whites did not use courtesy titles of respect when referring to African Americans, like Mr. or Mrs. or ma'am. Instead, blacks were referred to by their first name. But blacks absolutely had to use courtesy titles when referring to whites and could not use their first name. This informality of whites using the first names instead of courtesy titles caused many African Americans to start using initials for their first name.
JW.
Jim Crow etiquette operated in conjunction.
That's why you get a brother like JW, RJ, TJ. That's wow. Wow. This type of shit, I ain't even gonna say that. Come on.
With Jim Crow laws, i.e. black codes. Black codes
Make you want to swing on a white person, no?
Blacks from things like public
I don't
transportation,
condone that.
facilities, juries, jobs, neighborhoods. The passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution granted blacks some of the same legal protections as whites. However, after the Compromise of 1877, the South and border states began restricting the liberties of African Americans once again. Over the next few years, segregation and disenfranchisement picked up pace in the South, and it was more or less tolerated in the North. In 1890, Louisiana passed the separate car law. This Louisiana law made it illegal for blacks to sit in coach seats reserved for whites, and whites couldn't sit in coach seats reserved for blacks. The idea was to aid passenger comfort by creating equal but separate facilities for blacks and whites. But this was a joke. Almost no public accommodations, including railway travel, provided blacks with equal facilities. So in 1891, a group of blacks decided to test the Jim Crow law. They had a man by the name of Homer Plessy, who was 1/8 black, sit in the white-only coach section. And he was, of course, promptly arrested. Plessy's lawyers argued that Louisiana did not have the right to label one citizen as black and another as white for the purpose of restricting their rights and privileges. On May 18, 1896, the Supreme Court delivered its verdict, and by a 7-2 vote declared the separate but equal facilities constitutional on interstate railroads. The court ruled that the protections of the 14th Amendment applied only to political and civil rights and not social rights. Judge Henry Brown wrote,
Wow. So think about this. Political and civil rights, but not social rights. So meaning even in the everyday activity, going to the grocery store, getting on a train, going to school, they didn't have to treat you like a human being if you were black. That was a law meant to just treat you as an underclass, to subjugate you. You get what I'm saying? Treat you less than a dog. Treat you less than you. It's bad, bro. Like,
consist in the assumption that the enforced separation of two cards stamps the colored race with a badge of inferiority. If this be so, it is not by any reason found in the act, but solely because the colored race chooses to construct upon it. The Plessy versus Ferguson verdict legitimized two different societies, one white and superior, and the other black and disenfranchised. For blacks, the Supreme Court further underpinned the constitutional protections of blacks and made Jim Crow laws a way of life. The Plessy versus Ferguson verdict sent a message that discrimination against blacks was acceptable, so other laws followed, like grandfather clauses, as well as poll taxes, white-only primaries, and literacy tests. Other states passed statutes severely regulating social interactions between the races. Jim Crow signs were placed on water fountains, door entrances, and exits in front of public facilities. There were separate hospitals for whites and blacks, separate prisons, separate public and private schools, and separate restrooms. And of course, in most instances, black facilities were grossly inferior, and in other cases, there were no black facilities at all.
The Plessy versus Ferguson verdict gave Jim Crow states a legal way to ignore their obligations to African Americans as citizens of this country.
And that's interesting to think about, because the whole premise of it is, let me put this out real quick. Hold on.
Jim Crow laws and the system of etiquette was backed by the threat of violence. African Americans who violated those social norms by drinking at a white water fountain or trying to vote risked everything from their homes to their jobs to their very lives.
And that's the thing I was getting ready to say. All of this about the social code of how you had to conduct yourself. These laws enforce that violence could be handled in these situations, could be used to handle these situations, not by a black person, but by a white person to a black person. So if you didn't follow the codes of drinking at the same water fountains or trying to eat at the same restaurants or riding the same train car, like he said, a black man couldn't even light a white woman's cigarette. If they caught you, they could basically beat you, take you to jail, or kill you. Whatever is at their discretion, unalive you rather. Sorry, but it's like, man, gee, to see that this was going on and to feel like that doesn't set the social platform for right now is crazy, because it's still a two-tier justice system. It's still a two-tier social system. It's still a two-tier economic system. So until we get all of that dispersed and, replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice, then we got a problem.
Could physically beat blacks with complete immunity, and blacks had little legal recourse against these assaults because the criminal justice system was a part of the Jim Crow system. Matter of fact, violence was instrumental in Jim Crow because it was used as a method of social control to enforce the racial hierarchy. The most extreme form of this violence was lynching.
That's a pair of feet hanging right there. The brother zoomed in on the picture because obviously it's YouTube, but this is a bunch of white folks sitting around smiling, grinning, having a good old time, smoking cigarettes. They got children in the crowd while a black man is hanging from above them. This is the social attitude we dealing with. You get what I'm saying? We dealing with real life monsters, goons, goblins, devils. Like real life. And the fact that violence was used to keep this system upheld speaks volumes, because it's not like you gonna tell black folks all of these different codes and ways of life and that they can't even be treated as human beings on a daily basis in areas of activity, and we just gonna settle for it. It was always a fight. It was always a struggle. That's what lets you know that they had to have whole armies, whole regimes, whole Ku Klux Klans, whole systems to put us in subjugation, to oppress us, because to be real, we wasn't fucking going. You dig? You don't have systems that are this lethal for people that are just so docile, because that's how the picture is painted. For people that's so weak, you don't have a system that's so strong. Let me just break it down for y'all. Let me make it ABC.
The definition of lynching is with 3 or more persons.
My people really that
death without legal sanction. Jim Crow lynchings were public,
400-year fight, man.
Murders carried out by mobs. And from 1882 to 1968, there were almost 4,730 known lynchings and 3,000.
How many?
4,000. And from 1882 to 1968, there were almost 4,730 known lynchings, and 3,440 of them were made up of black men and women. Black lynchings accounted for 72% of the total lynchings that we know of.
Wow.
Well, most victims were hung or shot, but they could be burned at the stake, castrated, beaten with clubs, or dismembered. During the mid-1880s, whites constituted majority of the lynching victims. However, after Reconstruction, blacks more frequently became victims of lynching. During the lynching era,
and what I'm trying to get to y'all, that's 5,000 lynchings in less than 100 years. What I'm trying to get to y'all is, you see how the system, because people have this mindset that racism is over, and that all of those people died off, or the world just changed and laws were put into place, and that is no more. But look at the degeneracy going through each generation. You could see teenagers, you could see old men, you could see little kids. What I'm trying to get to y'all is, some of those people are old now, but they had kids and taught them this the same way. The same fucking way. And this is all throughout the country. No matter if you're in Chicago, if you're in Tennessee, if you're in Texas, if you're in New York, if you're in California, if you're in Florida, it don't matter. This was fucking going on, and it's still going on today. It's just not overt, meaning it's not in your face. You don't walk down the street and see somebody spraying somebody with a fire hose, and sicking the dogs on them because they black. No, they have a system of racism now, so it's covert, meaning you can't see it. It's not to just the average eye. Now we're gonna use the court system. Now we're gonna use the school system. Now we'll use the policing system. Now we'll use the health system. Now we'll poison the food that we put in your community. Now we'll drop drugs, and we'll salt the earth of drugs all over your. You get what I'm saying? So if you're not using your mind, you can't see this. You just see the old school. You see these old hats, you see these old shirts, you see these tattered clothes, you think of the 30s, you see the picture in black and white, and you be like, oh, that's old shit. That don't go on no more. You fucking crazy. You done lost your damn mind.
White lives were held at a higher value, while the lives of African Americans held little to no value. Law-abiding African Americans lived with the daily risk of arbitrary and possibly deadly violence. One of the first major challenges to Jim Crow since Plessy versus Ferguson was Brown versus the Board of Education. In the decision, it was issued on May 17, 1954, the court concluded in its opinion by declaring segregated public school education inherently unequal in a 9-0 decision.
Is that Rudy Ridges? I want to look that up real quick. Give me 2 seconds, chat. Ruby Ridges, not Rudy. Ruby Bridges, my bad. Ruby Bridges. She got a movie? Wow, she got a movie about her life. Movie. Yeah, that's dope. Look, she cause I want to give y'all the rundown real quick, and I want to give myself a quick reminder. Ruby Bridges, Ruby Neal Bridges Hall is an American civil rights activist. She was born the first African American child to FBA to attend a formerly white school known as William Franz Elementary School in Louisiana during the New Orleans school desegregation crisis. This was 1960, November 14th. She's a subject in the painting. So she's the little girl in this picture right here. But they got a picture of her older speaking at Texas A&M University. And this like 2015. She's still living to this day. She's still living. She's 71. She from Mississippi. So she was born in Mississippi and went down there to go to school in Louisiana. And this was during desegregation, when they was trying to make sure that the schools wasn't just black here and whites there. They was trying to put them together. So she went to school during that, was one of the first little black girls, and they was doing her dirty. He gonna run down the history, but they was spitting on her, calling her all types of N-words. She had to have a real detailed security follow her to school as a 6-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So they had a famous painting of putting a little Latino boy next to her in her famous painting and making it seem as though they had the same struggle going on. And it wasn't no Latinos in Louisiana at that time, man. Let's be real.
They stated that this violated the Equal Protection Clause. The Equal Protection Clause is the part of the first section of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and the clause provides that nor shall a state deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protections under the law. This decision declared that segregated public schools were unconstitutional, and that decision had far-reaching social ramifications. During the early 60s, after numerous civil rights demonstrations and protests were held, particularly in the South, the civil rights movement pushed the Kennedy administration to give their full-fledged support to a civil rights bill. President Kennedy sent the civil rights bill to Congress, but legislation was blocked. After Kennedy's assassination, President Lyndon B. Johnson called for the immediate passage of Kennedy's civil rights legislation as a memorial to the deceased president. Johnson formed a coalition that led to the passage of the bill in early 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 guaranteed public accommodations at restaurants and authorized the Justice Department to bring suits to force desegregation of facilities in schools, also gave new powers to a Civil Rights Commission, and allowed federal funds to be cut off in cases of discrimination. By 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson also called for stronger voting rights laws and began working on what became the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 ended any legal barriers to voting at all federal and state and local elections. It provided federal oversight and monitoring to counties with historically low minority voter turnout. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 made Jim Crow laws technically illegal. Many African Americans paid for Jim Crow with their lives, and the impact of the long history of Jim Crow continues to be felt in the United States today.
Come on. So to have that co-opted is pretty crazy, man. I wanted to hear what Tariq had to say about it.
In Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, I am back to the crib, New York. So shout out to all of the some of the.
Excuse
No,
me, sir.
Tariq
How?
just be he be the broadcaster, so he be talking about all types of stuff. We gonna mo past that.
Trying to put out again. Listen, the discrediting campaign has already started. I've already said that was going to happen. It's midterms. Midterms is right around the corner. The think tanks have given people their talking points. They're going to be attacking the lineage heavy. They're going to be attacking me. You're going to hear a lot of COINTELPRO type of propaganda.
Real quick, that was the photo I was talking about earlier. I'm glad Tariq put that on his on the background of this video. That's the picture of Ruby Ridges being escorted by the detail to school because it was desegregation going on in Louisiana. So white folks that didn't want a little black girl going to school with their white children, they would disrespect her, call her all types of racial slurs, spit on her, threaten violence, throw stuff at her. You know what I'm saying? So she had to have the U.S. Marshals march her to school. And they're remixing this picture and having her hold the hand of a little Latino boy, as if Latinos had to go through the same struggles as blacks within that system in Louisiana. That's crazy, man. That's crazy work. It just really disheartens me to see something like that because understandably other groups of people go through their struggles and even with the U.S. government. But the thing is, don't try to co-opt us or try to use our history to paint your narrative. Just go fight your fight. You know what I'm saying? And we'll be back here. We might not be cheering you on. We just sitting on the couch chilling. And that's okay because that's what you did. You wasn't there. You did? You see how that go? So at the end of the day, you gotta... People who are really thinking, and you ain't got to be the sharpest pencil in the pencil box to understand what's going on. You can see what's going on. We debunking that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to understand this delineation movement is whooping ass out here, family.
Yes, it is.
And that's thanks to you. They want to put it on me. No. That's you. You in the grassroots. It is the foundational Black American grassroots that's putting belt to ass out here in these streets.
Belt to ass is crazy. Belt to ass is crazy, Tariq. Hey, a bit of that Chicago lingo, man. I'm from the South Side of Chicago, so man, we've been saying belt to ass for years, and now that's a thing on the internet. Shout out SG Batman. He got a song called Belt to Ass.
Politically, culturally, economically, you all are putting pressure on the streets out here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be very clear. This is why they can't contain it. This is why so many things are getting shut down so quickly and easily. This is why things are getting shut down. I think do we have tethers in here now? You're not going to troll in here now. But I want y'all to know that the DNC, they're going to have people attacking the grassroots hard body. They're going to be trying to shame the grassroots hard body. The latest attempt that got shut down, have y'all seen this Juan Crow nonsense that they tried to revamp? I warned y'all about that Juan Crow stuff a couple of years ago. What they did, they done made up something called Juan Crow that never existed to make it comparative to Jim Crow.
That's crazy.
To make it seem like we, foundational Black Americans and Latinos, have the same collective struggle over here.
Negative.
Talking about, blacks went through Jim Crow, but they went through Juan Crow because they were equally discriminated against, and the family shut that shit down because it's emphatically false. That ain't true. Ain't no Juan
BD.
Crow. That was trending earlier. They had that trending. It was some Latina lady, probably some DNC shield. What was the conversation about? She was saying, you ever heard of Juan Crow? You think Black Americans were the only ones who suffered during that period? Just because you don't know your history beyond your own, that doesn't mean there isn't more history out there. So these folks think that they're going to spin the block and try to circle around and change history. There was all of these protests going on, and most of the people they're targeting are Hispanic. So now they want us to jump out there with the capes so we can absorb some of the punishment and abuse. And foundational Black Americans are collectively saying, no, we're not doing that.
We're not doing it.
And this is causing everybody to suffer, including the Democrats. Because, see, the Democrats, ladies and gentlemen, they need us to be out here getting whooped on so that we can get emotionally invested for the Democrats to do something. See, they want us to go out here and get whooped on, and then they could blame the right-wingers. Oh, look what these racist right-wingers are doing. That's why you better vote for me so we can stop it. You got to vote for Kamala so we can stop the racist right-wing attacks on the Black community. The thing is, that ain't working because we've delineated and we ain't being targeted.
Delineation means, for those who are new to the conversation, delineation means that Black Americans have took it upon ourselves to recognize and to respect our own lineage. We are not some generic off-brand of Black people that you can mush into all the Black people amongst the diaspora, meaning a continental African or a continental Caribbean Black person cannot come over to America or be born in America by their parents who came over here and start acting as if they speak for us. Or it's cool that y'all assimilate to our culture and all that. That's fine. You did. We take what did they say? Emulation is the greatest compliment. You dig? So it's the greatest form of flattery. We not tripping on that. The thing about it is you're not going to speak for us as if you part of the culture socially, economically, politically, any of that. You dig? So we've taken it upon ourselves to know that we've overcome a great 400-year struggle. We had an ethnogenesis. A whole different people was born on this land, on this soil. And we're directly connected to that. Some of us have parents, great-grandparents, grandparents that was born on this soil. I could trace my lineage back to the 1700s, literally. Receipts of the Johnson family being owned. So it's like, bro, you can, if you have paperwork that goes way back to the inception of this country, you are foundational, which a lot of us are. But you have people coming over here acting as if they're foundational and speaking up for us. And then that's one thing when it's social, but it's another thing when it gets political and you get an Obama or a Kamala Harris or a Byron Donaldson or Westmore. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, we've shaken up the whole finesse in the con game. Us delineating was a wild card they were not ready for. I want y'all to understand how important and powerful that delineation was, ladies and gentlemen. Why you think they are kicking and screaming about it? Why do you think they are kicking and screaming about us delineating? Why do you think they make 30 spaces a day whining about us delineating? You ain't whining about something that don't work. You understand? Why you think they got their tethers and shields out here doing these think pieces trying to discredit and denigrate? They're not doing that because something ain't working. It's working like a charm.
that's a fact.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully
Make
working.
sure y'all get to stonertribe.com. Check out the music, merch, live streams, and live performances. You dig?
And that whole Juan Crow thing, again, because Hispanics are getting targeted by ICE enforcement and all of that. There was one case where there was a little Hispanic kid. There was a photo of him. They had to take him somewhere to child services, I think, because the dad or somebody got hemmed up. So they tried to pull at our heartstrings with this picture of this little Hispanic kid. Then they did a drawing of him with, there's a, you know, that famous drawing of, I think Ruby, what's her name? Ruby Bridges, one of those black girls who was walking to school.
Yeah, I thought it was Ruby Ridges with the R. It's Ruby Bridges with the B. Ruby Bridges.
Being escorted by federal troops. And there's a famous picture of this girl going to school. It's a painting of the black girl walking to school with federal troops having to guard her away from racism. Ruby Ridges, right? So they done another version of the painting and added the little Hispanic boy next to Ruby. And everybody said, hell no. Everybody collectively, the black grassroots said, no, you don't. No.
Negative.
No, thank you. No, you don't. That's bad. Whatever happened to that little Hispanic kid, we don't want nothing bad to happen. But yeah, we ain't doing that though. The grassroots is speaking up saying, hey, we're not going to co-opt our legacy that we suffered for alone. Yeah, everybody ain't going to jump on the civil rights bandwagon and siphon off the energy that we had to put blood, sweat, and street equity into. We're not doing that. That's disrespectful. Y'all wouldn't let us do that to some of your iconic moments, which you don't have too many. So they keep trying to backdoor their way into our legacy, making up some Juan Crow narrative. There was no Juan Crow. Let's be very clear. See, Jim Crow was a racial caste system. It wasn't no immigration policy. You understand?
And that's what I pointed out earlier, that it was a caste system. It was black, it was white. Literally, it was black and white. When you went to those signs that they explained earlier about the segregation socially, where you couldn't use the same bathrooms, restaurants, water fountains, couldn't ride the same train, couldn't light a cigarette for a woman, all of these social constrictions, they were for black people. And that was stated. They were called black codes. I don't see how you can't be any clearer. And the fact that you're trying to co-opt this as a community, it screams disrespect. Nothing else.
That was a legally enforced racial hierarchy that applied to all black people, citizens or not. Regardless of your behavior, regardless of your class, regardless of your language and your paperwork. You see? So there was no legal exit from it. There was no assimilation option. See, ICE enforcement, by contrast, that's an immigration enforcement. That's not race-based. That's when take your ass home. If you go home, you good. Yeah? That ain't the same as Jim Crow.
That's true. That's very true. So these are things that was put in law for people just based upon your skin color that lived here, that were citizens or not. Like he said, the immigration fight is people that came over here illegally, did not do the proper paperwork, and they being put out the country. That's illegal. Nobody fought for black people that were being done wrong as citizens. So why do you think we would come fight for a group of people that are doing something illegally? We were fighting for justice. This fight is not for justice. That's why you don't see people running to it. You get me? That's why you don't see our group running to it. That's something that y'all have to deal with respectfully. Respectfully.
If you take your ass back home to Latin America, you cool. Huh? Yeah, we couldn't escape Jim Crow through legalities. A black person born in the U.S., we just couldn't comply our way out of it. There was no documentation or no legal status. Nothing changed, the racial classification. We had to get out. We had to put work in the streets, family. Even wealthy and educated black citizens were still barred from certain rights. So we had to get out here in these streets and flip over the whole apple cart. We had to change the shit from top to bottom.
Facts.
Yeah? It ain't no equivalency with no damn Juan Crow. No, it ain't. And the real deal is, a lot of these Hispanics, historically, they fought to be classified as white.
We broke that down in the last video.
That just destroys your whole thing right there. You can't compare yourself to us. Because let me tell you, don't ever let them start talking about civil rights cases like that Mendez versus Westminster. They like to bring that up. Family, if you ever hear them bring up that Westminster versus Mendez, shut it down. That ain't no. We did civil rights too. We had one of the first civil rights movements. It was Mendez. The Mendez versus Westminster. That argument wasn't to get rid of discrimination. See, our civil rights movement was about ending all discrimination on race. I want you to understand something. Our civil rights movement, that Foundation of Black Americans went out there and pushed for, that was to end all racial discrimination, period. There are no racial quotas. That's what we were fighting for. That Mendez versus Westminster, their argument was, hey, listen, we're white too. So we shouldn't be treated like those other people. Treat us like whites. Yeah, discrimination is okay long as it's not us, because we are white too. Remember the treaties we signed in the 1800s, classifying us as white? So yeah, we should get all the good white supremacist benefits too. That ain't civil rights, that's racial privilege.
Facts.
And their organizations, LULAC, they explicitly rejected associations with black Americans. We bring that up all the time. Y'all look up LULAC. That's the biggest Latin American organization in the country, one of the oldest ones. They infamously, they did a few things. They fought for the right to be white on the census because I think in the 1930s, they gave Mexican their own race. They said that's a distinct race. And LULAC was like, oh, hell no. Oh, no. We want to be white. They fought for the right to be white. And during our civil rights movement, they infamously said the Negro struggle is not our struggle. Let them fight their own battles.
That's a fact. They definitely said
y'all
that.
look up that. Y'all look that up.
And
they told us to kick rocks.
I did the history on it. I won't break it down here, but I looked up the Mendez. I looked up the Mendez case, and I looked into LULAC and their statements about civil rights and Jim Crow. So definitely those are things that y'all can Google or use Chat GPT and it'll give you answers like that. So this is very true.
Also, the president of LULAC, what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. It's a Hispanic. I forgot his name. But he had restaurants where he discriminated against black people. He had a Jim Crow policy against black people. It ain't the same. Then they want to talk about the Brown Panthers and all of that, who were comparative to the Black Panthers. They were an offshoot of the Black Panthers. They were loaded with feds. Those Brown Panthers and all, they had a whole bunch of feds in that organization who infiltrated the real Black Panther Party. Let's tell all of it. What's his name? Somebody had his name in here. What's his name again? Felix Tahiri. Right, that's his name. Yeah, Felix Tahiri had restaurants that...
Felix? Oh, my bad. They said Tahiri? Yeah, I found him quick. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! I found a quote from him real quick. Let the Negro fight his own battle. His problems are not mine. I do not want to ally with him. That's Felix Tahiri, or however you say his name. That was a response to the Negro League. Wow. Yeah, he's got a lot. Man, you could just Google his name. His name is Felix Tahiri. You spell his last name Tijerina. And if you type him in Google, man, listen. You can't even finish his name without it saying "let the Negro" behind it in the Google search, and all types of like racist quotes come up. I wanted to see if I could find his restaurant, Felix Tahiri restaurant policies. Nah, what did he say it was? I'll be looking for the right verbiage, y'all. Excuse me.
Infiltrated the real Black Panther Party. Let's tell all of it. What's his name? Somebody had his name in here. What's his name again? Felix Tahiri. Right, that's his name. Yeah, Felix Tahiri had restaurants that discriminated against black people.
Discrimination. Felix Tahiri. Oh, okay. Here we go. Felix Tahiri, a prominent Houston restaurateur and LULAC leader in the 1950s, and enforced strict segregation policies in his restaurants, specifically banning black patrons. He created detailed and written instructions for his staff on how to deny service to African Americans. This discriminatory practice was part of a strategy to align Mexican Americans with white society during Jim Crow era. Key details regarding this aspect of his history include policy detail. Unlike some establishments that simply hung whites-only signs, Felix formulated a specific detailed policy titled Negroes to guide his staff in refusing service. And I mean, how much more clear could you get context? While he was a civil rights leader in LULAC and champion for Mexican American education, he simultaneously upheld segregation practices against African Americans to navigate the racial hierarchy of the 1950s in Texas. Legacy. Although he was known for his success, this aspect of his business practices is recognized by historians as significant shortcomings, because he denied. I mean, just think about it. How many? I could search the black population in Texas in the 1950s, but just think about how many black people he denied service and how much money he missed just based upon that. Anybody that's doing business with, I mean, anyway, How could you align yourself with the black struggle and you had this going on? You get it? There could possibly be no Juan Crow if this is what y'all doing as a group. This was the civil rights leader for the Mexican American group at the time, and he was practicing things like this. There's no way that Juan Crow could exist with Jim Crow. We just debunked the hell out of that.
He was the president of LULAC. See, we got to put all this stuff in context. They'll say some stuff and not put it in the right context.
All you gotta do is Google it.
Yeah. LULAC was heavy on segregating from black Americans and getting white proximity. And see, when they don't get it, these people got a very bad habit. They make these janky ass deals with white supremacy. And when the deals go flat, they come running to us because we've never made a deal with white supremacy. I keep pointing that out, ladies and gentlemen, and that's extremely important.
Extremely important.
Foundational Black Americans, we are the only people who never made no formal paperwork deal to comply with white supremacy.
Facts.
With us, it has always been up.
It's up and it's
That's
stuck.
why when tethers try to come at us and insult us, you niggas were slaves. The slave to the white man, you were slaves. Slaves meant we didn't comply. Slaves meant against our will. Slave meant we didn't cut no deal.
Facts.
Yeah, we survived slavery, and it's been up ever since. You tethers and all these other people made little janky deals.
Facts.
That's why you don't fight back, because they shut you down with your damn paperwork. They shut you down with your own paperwork. When you start saying, hey, I don't like I don't have any land. I don't have any property in my. Well, sir, let me show you that the treaty that your tribal leader signed 200 years ago, sir. Okay, let me show. This is what your tribal leader signed.
Man.
They signed over the right. So take it up with yourselves, sir. But the deal is the deal. You signed it, so you're going to have to sit down and shut up, Dudu Tunde. And that's how they shut you down. They pull out that paperwork that y'all signed. And all of these people signed these little janky deals. Hispanics too, they had little janky deals they're trying to assimilate. And when things go left, all of a sudden, hey, black and brown together, we're black and brown together. Oh, no. And foundational Black Americans are chilling.
Facts. There is no black and brown unity. That's not real. And the fact that they disrespect our history and our lineage to this degree shows you that that's not real. Black people in America, I want y'all to understand this. We are completely and utterly alone in our fight for justice. And that's cool because we always have been. We've tried to coexist with other groups and bring other groups into our fight and our struggle because we understand that the dominant society tries to colonize everything and every group of people. You dig? So we've always been the moral justice leaders, the moral justice league. We fighting for everybody and we trying to pull y'all in, but we've noticed this, that y'all tether on to us, but when it's time to really lock in and secure something lineage based for us, nobody's found in our struggle, even though we're helping everybody else in there. So with that being said, we have delineated and we're not rocking with any other groups and we're not oppressing any other groups. We might roast you. That's part of our that's part of our mystique. That's part of our swagger as Black Americans. We roast people. If you come around talking crazy, we're gonna give you the business. But other than that, we're not collectively as a group oppressing people. We don't have a system where it's police genocide against other groups, or it's miseducation against other groups, or we practicing bad housing, or bad economics with other groups. These things don't exist, right? So the disrespect against us just gotta stop. We recognizing and respecting our lineage, point blank, period. FBA all day.
We're chilling. Nah, we ain't going for no one-sided, half-ass temporary coalition that we don't benefit from. Handle your candle. Just handle your own business.
Yes, sir.
You need to be out here with us. No, we don't.
Nope.
No, we don't. You're listening to that damn Tariq. Y'all can blame me all day. Foundational Black Americans are just using common sense.
Hey.
They can think for themselves.
That's a
they
fact.
see a finesse game when they see it. They're just not going out there to absorb abuse. They done wised up. It ain't me. Everybody just got some common sense overnight, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we're not going for the overplay
We're
for the
on some
underlay.
lineage vibes
Ain't
right
going.
now. And everybody
Overlay
hate it.
for the
They're
underplay.
trying to flip
However that go.
it. You hate us. Why you so hateful to me, nigga? Because we ain't out there taking rubber bullets for you? No. Those shaming tactics are not going to work. That's not going to work. But that Juan Crow stuff, that is so disrespectful because they try to use black trauma as moral leverage. And they always wheel this out during these election cycles, during these immigration crackdowns. Yeah, you see? That's a shaming tactic. They're always trying to shame us into going along with the program because we are always the secret sauce because of our resistance energy, ladies and gentlemen. We have a spirit of resistance
Facts.
that everybody has to try to siphon off of. And we're using that spirit for ourselves, and that's what they've always hated, ladies and gentlemen. They feared the time when we start using our spiritual resistance energy for ourselves because we would be unstoppable. Which we are now, ladies and gentlemen. That Juan Crow shit got shut down very quickly.
Real
They
quick.
didn't know what hit them.
Get that shit out of here.
Y'all notice a lot of the bullshit that they're bringing to us, it's getting shut down very quickly. It's getting shut down instantly. You understand? Because we've tapped into that ancestral energy. This delineation movement gave us complete clarity about lineage, history, political status. So now we're real focused on respecting our lineage. So the physical and the spiritual and the psychological is all on the same chord right now, and that's unstoppable. And the thing is, this movement don't have no leaders to compromise, no NGOs, none of that stuff. That's the thing. So you can't attack it like you can, like you think you can. That Majara spirit, yes. And you can't attack it. There's no office to raid. There's no boardroom to infiltrate. There's no grants to threaten. This is a pure grassroots movement. That's why they keep trying to lie. FBA, this sounds like a CIA, FBI PSYOP. That makes zero damn sense. Y'all just saying anything out of frustration. That don't make no sense in the world. That makes zero damn sense, and you know it. Y'all just saying anything because you're powerless to it. I went into a live earlier when I was in New York. I was on my way to the airport, and I was just kind of scrolling TikTok, and there was some tethers in there whining about me. I went in, and boy, sometimes I like to just go in these tether rooms for shits and giggles. And I was in there, boy.
We gonna close out
the
real
tethers
quick. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all get to stonertrap.com. Check out the music, the merch, live streams, live performances. I might do another stream after this because I had a different topic. But yeah, that Juan Crow shit, get that shit out of here. FBA all day. We standing for the lineage. We representing. We making sure we respect and recognize our lineage. Y'all get over to the website. Check out some of them products. stonertrap.com. Get the merch, the music, live streams, and live performances. I'm out. Peace. Appreciate y'all, man.